What's up, everyone? We are back for the fourth episode of the new version of Real Talk. Once again, I am Matt, and as always, going forward, I'll be joined by an amazing guest, and that definitely goes forward with today because joining me is none other than my buddy, the Tony Award-winning producer, Maxwell, Cinemaxwell. How you doing, Max?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going all right.
It's quite an introduction. Thank you.
I mean, you're a Tony Award, like, I'm very much one of those people, like, if they're an award winner, you say it. If they're a doctor, you say it. They worked their ass off to get that accomplishment. So, like, why wouldn't you recognize them for that? Because that's why they're like Academy Award nominee, Academy or Oscar winner. When they in film, so why wouldn't you do that?
It's a good point
for anyone else. So people work their ass off for those accomplishments. But no, I've been waiting to get you on Real Talk because we've gotten close over the last few months, and I love talking to you, whether it's about TV shows like Euphoria or movies like we're going to talk about what was announced today. And I was like, there's only two people I could think about bringing on for this, and I want to bring on Maxwell because Connor is on this channel, and Connor can talk about it whenever. But Scream 6 is happening, and I know you, like me, were like, if it ends here, I'm happy, but I would love more of these new characters we got. So how are you feeling today after this news breaking?
Yeah, I mean, the magic trick of Scream 5, which I'm going to call Scream 5 even though it's called Scream, is it feels like it can work as a concluding chapter of the legacy characters. Like, if we never see Sydney, Dewey, Gale, etc. again, this is a fitting conclusion. But I think so many of the new characters are so exciting and have so much potential that I'm excited to see where they go. If I were a betting man, I would say that we've seen the last of Sydney and Dewey and Gale in Scream movies.
Dewey.
At least
definitely Dewey.
Well, I'm being a little cagey with spoilers. I don't, but yeah, definitely Dewey. But I was thinking about it. There are other quote unquote legacy characters who they could bring back in 6. But to answer your question succinctly, I'm really excited. One of the great things about the 90s when the first Scream came out is Scream 2 was out a year later, right? And so if they're going into production on this summer, there's no reason why it can't be ready to go early to mid next year.
Yeah, no, that's Connor and I are talking about that.
30 to 2 months to shoot, a couple months to edit it,
And it's not like it's some big special effects type film that needs all the extra time. I remember when people were like, when Spielberg did The Post, and people were like, wait, that was shot, edited, and whatnot in 6 months? How did you do that? I'm like, because it's not an effects-driven film. It's just a straight-up story. You film what you need to film, you edit it, and get the score done, and you got your film. Like, what else can?
In so much as these movies have effects, it's practical makeup effects, which they do on set. I'm sure there's some amount of CG to enhance things, but we're not talking about alien creatures. We're not talking about a lot of compositing. We're not talking about, like MCU level stuff. It's just a slasher movie. So The production turnaround time on it is quick. It's just a matter of the writing process. And I have to assume that because they announced they're shooting this summer, that they were already working on the script for a while, in hopes that this would hit well for a sequel. Because if I remember correctly, when Kevin Williamson was shopping what was then called Scary Movie around Hollywood in the early 90s, he kept saying, I also have a script or a framework for a sequel ready to go. So I can't help but wonder if, with this project, there was some element of that. Like, we're going to do a Scream Legacy sequel and introduce a whole cast of new characters. And we already have a lot of ideas, if not an outline, if not a first draft of a sequel ready to go.
Well, and that's the thing. They came out and said, radio silence, that whole group said, oh, yeah, we already have an idea for a sequel if we get it. We're hoping we get it. We got to see how everyone reacts. And earning over $100 million globally during a pandemic for a film that only costs $50 million to make, probably $10 million to market. and then it's not even been out a month yet. Yeah, they did what they needed to do, and it's cool because I know after I saw the movie, I was on the watch along with you and Amber over on Off the Rails, and we watched 1 and 2 back to back, and it just made me realize how much I actually loved that movie.
Yeah, I have seen the new one 4 times, and I kind of want to see it one more time before it leaves theaters. Although I heard it's hitting VOD on March 1st. So
Yes.
for those who are not comfortable going to the theaters, or those who want to watch it again but don't want to pay to see it again, there's only less than a month until it hits VOD.
Well, there's talks it's going to hit Paramount Plus even before it hits VOD.
I would be all for that. Not that anyone has Paramount Plus, but I do. So
I do.
Yeah, I listen, I've thought a lot about it. If you watched those watch-alongs, or if you are familiar with me at all, I credit the Scream franchise as being one of the most influential film series in my love of cinema, my love of horror. And I'm at the point now where I'm comfortable saying the new one is my second favorite film in the series. Which leaves a lot to live up to for the next one, but my mind is already racing with possible ideas, because every Scream movie, even the third one, which has a slightly different approach, every Scream movie has some hook to justify it in relevance to the landscape of current cinema, whether it be horror cinema specifically or cinema at large. So there's part of me that almost feels like there's a really funny meta approach to this, where they deal with rushed sequels.
That'd be great.
But I thought the script in particular for Scream 5 was so smart, and Vanderbilt has had his hand in so many other good things. Like, this is the guy that wrote the screenplay for Zodiac, which I think is one of the most meticulously crafted screenplays of our time. So I have a lot of faith in what he's going to do. But yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited this franchise is going to keep going and into a new generation, and hopefully the trend can continue that there's no bad Scream movies.
Yeah, I would really dig that, because ultimately this I unlike you have only been able to see it the once still. Every weekend I'm bugging my girlfriend like, hey, you want to go see Scream? I got this to do. We can't. I was like, okay. The fingers crossed for this Friday. They're just looking like there's a chance that the snowstorm lets up tomorrow. But I'm right now I'm hovering. It's like 2.5. I can't decide if it's 2 or 3. I just need that second viewing right now to firmly place it, because I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. Like, it's Twitter is now going based off of, here, we suggest this tweet for you based off of your likes. I'm getting Scream tweets. I'm like, I don't appreciate you guys going based off of my likes, but I do appreciate some of these tweets I'm seeing because of it.
Yeah, my Twitter feed has also been bombarded with recommended tweets about Scream, and I'm not mad at it. I'm not mad at it.
It's just weird, because it's like, okay, cool. I don't know this person. I'm on Twitter to follow the people I know, but I like seeing a good tweet. So cool, I guess. It's like Star Wars, Scream, and NBA basketball. That's like what all my recommended tweets have been. I'm like, all right.
For me, it's been Scream and the New York Rangers lately.
How are your Rangers
pretty
doing?
Good. They're great. They're having a fantastic season. They're in the top 3. They're definitively going to get a playoff spot. They have the current highest goal scorer in the league right now, which is amazing. Their goalie is arguably having the best season of any goalie, and could get the Vezina trophy at the end of the year. I hope I said that right. I may have butchered it. It's the Vezina trophy. Excuse me. I always mix up the letters, which is like the trophy they give for the best goaltender in the season. So we'll see. You know, we've gotten to the playoffs a lot in my lifetime, and we haven't won the cup since '94. So I'm going to keep myself cautious, but it feels like this could be the year. We have a new coach. The team is working well. And if we are buyers at the trade deadline, which I think we will be, if we can put like one more top 6 center on the team who can win faceoffs and score a couple goals, then we could go all the way. Thanks for tuning into Hockey Talk here on the WATReelEnt Entertainment Network. I've been your host, Maxwell Haddad.
No, I mean, I had to ask. My buddy Lou, the one I told you who wants to get into the theater industry, and he makes independent films with the co-founder of this channel, Nick. He's like, I'm adopting the Mets as my second team. He's like, because he's like, I gotta start having that New York attitude, and I don't want to be a Yankees fan. I want to be a Mets fan for it. I'm like,
hell yeah.
I'm like, okay, Lou. I'm like, Lou, I get it, but you still live in Cleveland, buddy. I'm like, my buddy who won the Tony is a Mets fan, so you're on the right mindset. He's like, wait, you're telling me the friend you told me you won a Tony is a Mets fan? I'm like, yeah. He's like, then I gotta be a Mets fan.
I can move.
I see the Tony.
My beautiful Citi Field right there. So, I am indeed a Mets fan.
All right, so
I'm usually covering it when I'm streaming and stuff, but this chair has wheels.
So I've been meaning to ask you this all day. How upset were you by the BAFTA Best Actor nominations?
Honestly,
or shocked, I should say.
I'm at the point this year where I don't even care that much because it's been such a weird award season. Like, okay, BAFTA is always suspicious because they've never once given Denzel a nomination. Not once. This man has won multiple Oscars. He has like 8 nominations. Yeah. SAG Awards, Golden Globes, Tony Awards. BAFTAs look at him. They're like, nah. You would think the one year they would finally give him a nomination is when he's performing Shakespeare. And they were still like, nah. But then on top of that, arguably my favorite performance of the year from a British actor in Tick, Tick, Boom is ignored. So at first, my first thought was I had to go look and make sure Tick, Tick, Boom was eligible for BAFTA because sometimes with release date, this, that, and the other, but it was. Yeah. I don't know. They're I do not think the BAFTAs are going to translate over to the Oscars in that significant a capacity. I think we're going to get a lot of surprises. Yeah. I think that the BAFTA voting body is still a lot more old, white, and rigid than the work they've done to try and expand, with still work to be done, the Oscars voting body. I read a stat recently that this year's voting pool for the Oscar nominators is the biggest it's ever been. So you're getting a lot of different voices. So hopefully Andrew Garfield gets a nomination. I think if Andrew gets nominated, he has a path to win. I think if he doesn't get nominated, it'll be one of the biggest snubs of our lifetime.
I agree with both statements. Realistically, to me, the best actor is down to 2 people, and that's Andrew and Will Smith for King Richard. Like those are the 2 performances that, for me personally, stand out above the rest. I also noticed in BAFTA there was Mike. They did one thing right. Mike Faced. They nominated Mike Faced.
Yes, that really excited me because I've always felt like I responded to a prompt on Twitter a couple days ago, like, what is one Oscar nomination that you could see happening that would be a big surprise because it hadn't hit any precursors yet, didn't get SAG, didn't get Golden, and Mike Faced was who I said. Yeah. But the weird thing is Mike Faced gets this nomination, Rachel Zegler doesn't, Spielberg doesn't, the movie doesn't. So it's like, what's happened? It's a little confusing.
Yeah, that was my other big takeaway. I'm like, there's a lack of West Side Story here, and I'm not feeling that right now because that is arguably.
I am taking the BAFTAs with a relative grain of salt in terms of what the Oscars is going to be like, because Mike Faced was probably tied for my favorite supporting male last year alongside Jeffrey Wright in the French Dispatch.
Jeffrey Wright's part was about the only thing I liked about that movie. I'm just going to be honest.
Fair enough. I know we disagree on that movie a little bit, but I thought he was great.
Of the 3 stories, his story was when I was like, yes. I love the acting in the movie. I think I came to the conclusion I'm not a Wes Anderson guy.
That's fair.
Or not Anderson. Why Wes? I'm tired. I've been
Wes Anderson. You were right.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Sorry. We talked about Scream. I said Wes Anderson. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah. This is real talk where Matt's tired brain sometimes screws him up. But no, I'm not a Wes. I've come to the conclusion I'm not a Wes Anderson fan. I'm starting to think I'm not the biggest James Gunn guy either, because outside of the first Guardians film, I haven't really I haven't loved a lot of his stuff. I like it just fine. Like Suicide Squad, like it just fine. Peacemaker, like it just fine. Guardians 2, I don't care for at all.
I watched the first 4 episodes of Peacemaker this week, and considering I didn't really like the Suicide Squad at all, I actually don't hate the show. It's not bad. I think it's found a better balance than the movie did for me.
Yes.
Like, it still has James Gunn's shock humor, but I'm actually finding it interesting when it's sort of peeling back the layers on Chris Smith a little bit, and exploring how Rick Flag's comment affected him and how his father affected him. It's actually a more
interesting story than Suicide
approach
Squad as a whole
to the character than I expected. Plus, Vigilante is fantastic.
Yes, Freddie Stroma, who was Cormac McLagan in Harry Potter.
Yeah, and he's I don't remember the character name, but the guy with the abs who's a DJ in Pitch Perfect.
Okay, yeah.
Who runs the radio station where Becca gets her internship. So he's been around for a while, and I think this is really like a good breakout role for him.
Oh, I agree completely, because he basically up until now he was a nice character actor, background character actor, where he has these small roles where you're like, okay, I recognize him from somewhere, I don't know where. And I was talking to Colin Morris about this, who I know Colin loves you. You're talking about it last night actually, and he's like, dude, that's Cormac McLagan. I'm like, you didn't know that? Like, it's weird to think that. I shouldn't say it's weird. It's good. It's great to see that a lot of these smaller actors now are starting to get chances to have these bigger breakout supporting roles.
It's fascinating to see, particularly how the cast of Harry Potter has almost entirely gone on to have really interesting careers. Like, I remember when the series was coming to an end, people were like, are they sort of all just going to be Mark Hamill's, where, okay, they show up here and there, but don't really make a name for themselves? Later on, Mark Hamill, of course, did all of his voice work and found a nice niche for himself. But immediately after Jedi, he was not getting great roles. He was too typecast and people weren't taking a chance. But if you look at what Daniel Radcliffe has done, who is just taking these ambitious roles and just doing whatever the hell he wants. If you look at Rupert Grint, who, he's on that Apple show, that M. Night Shyamalan show. Emma Watson, who starred in a $1 billion Disney musical and did nice work in Little Women and Perks of Being a Wallflower. And then you extend down to Freddie Stroma. You look at the guy, Alfie Enoch, who played Dean Thomas, who starred in How to Get Away with Murder. You look at the guy who played Neville, Matt. I was going to say Thomas, and then I'm like, nope, that's you.
I know. Why can't I think of his last name? We're two people who are supposed to know this stuff, Maxwell.
I know. Or even Harry Melling, who you would have watched as Dudley Dursley and been like, yeah, enjoyed this career. You're not getting it. Who's killing it. Like, he's fantastic in Queen's Gambit. He was solid in the Pharma Bro villain role in The Old Guard. Like, all of these actors from the various Harry Potter franchises are having a solid career for themselves.
I mean, like I said, Perks of Being a Wallflower is one of my all-time favorite movies. I cry almost every time I watch it. But you're absolutely right, and I wish I seen more Rupert Grint, and the one of the Phelps brothers, I don't know which one, was actually is a blink and you miss it part in Last Night in Soho. So they're all out there, they're all doing work, and it's really cool to see. Makes me happy, as I can actually hear my brother rewatching The Sorcerer's Stone in the room behind me. But no, I just love what this whole business is becoming, because remember back in the day when working TV was almost like giving up on a career, and then now it's, oh no, streaming is TV. We want to work in streaming because it's giving us these avenues to delve deeper into the story and be darker or more gritty or all that stuff.
Yeah. It's really interesting how TV, even let's say pre-1999.
Yeah.
I think The Sopranos was really the turning point. Pre-1999, television was looked at where actors who couldn't cut it in movies go to retire. Actors who are using it as a stepping stone to movies attempt to make it work, which rarely happened, or people who were just going to stay in TV their whole career. And now that's not the case anymore.
No, it's not.
Now, and I love it. I love how, because, you know, I'm a film guy, but also I got a master's degree in television management. I am I love television as much as I love movies and theater. I think it's such a beautiful art form, and we've only seen it continue to grow and expand in the last 20, 25 years. Now it's not only legitimate, it's like if there are film actors who aren't dabbling in television a little bit, whether it be for a mini series or a show, I'm like, oh, are you not getting these? What's going on here? You know, barring the few major stars, like,
right.
You know, but even so, we're seeing all, like, you know, all sorts of people. Like in the 90s, an A-level Oscar-winning actress wasn't going to go do a little mini series, but now you got Kate Winslet doing this stuff, and you know, all of these incredible actors. Zendaya, okay, Zendaya is a great example, because Zendaya is I would say of her generation and female stars, probably the best and brightest talent that there is. And she is, if not yet a household name, she's very close to being a household name. She's a movie star, as much as there are movie stars anymore. Whether it be Dune, Spider-Man, Greatest Showman, she's been in beloved movies that are hits, and people know her name. She also is the lead in a buzzy HBO series and won an Emmy for it.
Finally watching.
Yeah, I'm watching season 2. You know, this is such a new, not new anymore, but relatively new in the history of the two mediums phenomenon. And I love it because, you know, you shoot a movie for 2 months and then you can go shoot your TV show for a couple of months and then go back to shoot a movie. And there are ways to make it all work. It's not looked down upon anymore. Television used to be looked down upon, and it's not. I know some people who think television is telling better stories than movies, and I don't know if I agree with that or not. I think in some cases, yes, in some cases, no. But when you have major film talents from the writing and directing side also exploring television, like, to me, a major watershed moment was like Steven Soderbergh doing The Knick.
Okay.
Right? Yeah. Or Barry Jenkins doing the Underground Railroad. Like,
those are good ones.
Incredible filmmakers who you never would have thought were going to take time out from their film career and do television series. And now it's just like, oh yeah, this is just his project, and he decided to do it as 10 episodes instead of as a movie, which is why Tarantino, for example, keeps saying he's only going to make 10 movies and then he's going to retire. Okay, maybe you're going to make 10 movies, but then, bro, we know you're just going to start making miniseries or some shit.
Exactly.
Like, don't fool us. I mean, at this point, like, he's already dabbled with it. Like,
well, he's already said he's like Kill Bill Volume 3 would technically. He's like, I consider Kill Bill 1 2, so Volume 3 would be a part of that. It's like, no, bro, that's its own movie.
Well, if you count the Kill Bills as separate and all this other stuff, he's already made 10 movies. So It's like, whatever, man.
It's just like, no, you find every loophole you can to make it. And here's the other thing I'm loving about TV. It's giving these actors that we love a chance to become storytellers. Perfect example, and I think you know where I'm going with this. Bryce Dallas Howard and what she's done with her 3 episodes of Star Wars between The Mandalorian and Book of Boba Fett, to where now people are calling for her to make the next Star Wars film.
Yeah. I think her episode of Boba Fett, or even her. So I was not fully sold on The Mandalorian when it first started. I was intrigued by it, but I thought, as many shows do, it had pilotitis, and then it was off to a slow start. It really wasn't until her episode in the first season that I finally saw what the show could be.
Yes.
And I think even though people talk Jon Favreau, Dave Filoni, Robert Rodriguez, all great artists who have helped build this Disney Plus Star Wars sandbox, I think Bryce's input and impact on it cannot be overlooked, because her episode in season 2 of Mando, and now her episode in Book of Boba Fett. I know people freaked out about this week's episode of Boba Fett, and it was
good. It was good. I'd still put last week's over it.
But the level of the quality of the filmmaking was not as strong as what Bryce Dallas Howard did, because Dave Filoni is not as good of a director, and it felt like 3 different shows in one, which is not necessarily Dave's fault. It's just that Star Wars thing where your main characters are like spread around different parts of the galaxy, and you know they're all gonna meet each other, but when you're jumping from place to place, there's a little tone. But her episode of Mando was like the flashback scene we saw or even just some of the shots on the bridge when they were fighting over the dark. Like, this is beautiful stuff. Yes. So yeah, let her make a Star Wars if she wants, but I'm also interested to see what else she could do.
Exactly. That's where I'm at with
it. I feel like we're a day or two away from it being announced that she's directing a feature film, and the sky's the limit. Listen, when you grow up and Ron Howard is your dad, and if you look at her career as an actress, and I've always loved her as an actress, I think she's super talented. She's worked with a lot of great filmmakers. She clearly has the eye for it. I think she could be a major filmmaking talent if she wants to.
I think she wants to, honestly.
And I actually think this is really fascinating because, let's look at blockbuster cinema the last 10 years. A lot of them end up being directed by people who made 1 or 2 indie films. Maybe they played Sundance or TIFF or the Tribeca Film Festival, that basically served as their calling card, and then they got snatched up by Marvel or DC or Star Wars or whatever the hell it is.
Perfect
to make
example,
their movie.
Ryan Coogler, Fruitvale Station, followed up with a mid-sized budget one in Creed. Then he gets Black Panther.
John Watts, he made Cop Car, and then he got hired to do Spider-Man.
And now Fantastic Four.
And I like Cop Car, but there's nothing about Cop Car that suggested that he had the right skill set to do a $150 million budgeted superhero movie. Right. Whereas now, you let someone dabble in a television program, they learn on the job, they have the skill set to work with effects, to work with the previs department, to shoot fight sequences. That might even arguably be a more natural transition to go direct a big blockbuster movie than it would be from directing a $200,000 budgeted indie that maybe a few people saw. Oh my God, Colin Trevorrow. I really like Safety Not Guaranteed. I think that's a really, really great movie. But no one would watch that and say, hey, this is the guy to reboot Jurassic Park. If anything, the guy who I thought was the guy to reboot Jurassic Park based on their indie calling card film was Ben Zeitlin with Beasts of the Southern Wild.
Okay, yeah. Which, by the way, his Peter Pan film was slightly underrated in my opinion. Just want to say that.
It's a not a bad movie. I listen to the score all the time.
The score is fantastic. I liked the different, more darker take on it, and I think that's why I loved it so much. Or that side of it.
It's a good movie.
Peter Pan.
It's never been released on physical media.
Wendy?
You can only stream it on iTunes and Amazon. I don't believe they ever put it on Blu-ray.
I saw it on normal Blu-ray early on in the
if they have, it was a lot longer than normal.
I mean, wow! I can get it on Best Buy.
Oh, really? Well, then forgive me. They must have released that much later on.
Yeah, and, no, it's sold out. So it's sold out. So you might not even be able to get it.
I don't think they made that. Oh, so if you go on Amazon, for example, it was released on Blu-ray in the UK.
Yeah.
And on DVD in the UK, but not in the US. So I don't know.
I loved Peter in that film. I gotta say that the kid they got to play Peter was it was awesome. And a black Peter Pan was a nice new touch. Just saying.
Yeah.
But no.
So I'll be curious to see what Bryce does next. I feel like I can definitely feel like she's going to want to keep directing for sure.
So you brought up Colin Trevorrow. I got to ask, are you necessarily excited for the next Jurassic Park film?
I am. I have enjoyed both Jurassic World movies. I am thrilled that Laura Dern and Sam Neill are coming back. I hope they have legitimate roles and not just cameos. And I think from what I'm hearing, they do. But I think the concept is something that we got teased with in the Lost World and that people have been wanting to see from this series forever. Dinosaurs are finally loose in the real world. Every Jurassic movie up until now has found a way to keep its characters and the dinosaurs contained, which makes for good suspense, but there are limitations. I know Fallen Kingdom, for example, had a lot of people disliking it, but I loved that the climax was basically a haunted house movie, but instead of being chased by ghosts or a slasher killer with a knife, they were being chased by raptors around this like gothic creepy mansion. That was really cool.
I liked that aspect of it. I still have issues with the dinosaur's bulletproof but falls on a triceratops skull and is dead.
It has silly stuff, but there's silly stuff in all of these movies.
Sure.
But yeah, I think whether or not they should have brought Trevorrow back after what happened with him at Star Wars, I think I'm excited to see it.
I guess I thought, because I know a lot of people like the first Jurassic. I like the first Jurassic World. Second one,
me too.
Second one, I gave it a second chance. I'm like, I like it a little bit better. I'm still not sure how I feel about it. I guess part of my issue is I've watched Book of Henry. I read his Star Wars script. What started off as being a really great, interesting writer has now kind of, like, in my opinion, for me at least, the more of his stuff I see or read, the less interested I am to see of his stories that he tells. You know what I mean? I don't know if you read Duel of Fates. It is an interesting read. I know
I have read it.
What are your thoughts on
it? There's always possibilities as to how something is going to translate from page to screen, but think what you want about Rise. I think we ended up with the slightly better movie than we would have gotten.
You and I are on the same mindset there. I will say that.
I am not a Rise hater like some people are. I don't love it like some people do, and I very, very much think, and I've talked about this, on some streams or shows, and also just in offline, and I'm like, I think the biggest issue that happened with Rise was they were rushed.
Yes.
They fired Colin Trevorrow, and they decided to go back with JJ, and JJ brought in Chris Terrio, and they did not extend the shooting schedule.
Bingo. It's like, no, we want this done by their original release date.
So they had a very short amount of time to write the script. Now, the funny thing about it is, let's say they had delayed it by 6 months or a year and given them more time. Well, then who the hell knows if we even would have seen the movie at all at this point, because 6 months later would have been summer 2020. Movie theaters weren't open in major markets. And even December 2020,
primarily open.
Movie theaters were not open here in New York. They didn't open until March of 21. So yeah, Wonder Woman 84 opened on Christmas in 2020, but only where it could, and then predominantly was on HBO Max. So, there's no way they could have known that, but had they given them the extra time, we could have still been sitting in limbo without the concluding chapter of the sequel trilogy.
Do you think if they had given it the extra time that the hatred that some people felt for Last Jedi may have died down a bit also?
No, and listen, people may, I don't know what your listenership viewership is for
I
this.
love Last Jedi. That's everyone.
People can come for me on this. I think Last Jedi is great. It's just about my second or third favorite Star Wars movie.
Top 5.
And I think that even if you hate a movie, the need to perpetually and rampantly go on and on and on in any possible public forum about how much you hate it is unhealthy. It is toxic. Criticize whatever you want. Feel however you want. You could say, this is the worst movie I've ever seen. Bro, we get one fucking life on this earth. Spend the rest of your time celebrating the shit you love. You don't like Last Jedi? bro, go put on Empire Strikes Back and bask in how much you love that. Sitting online and tweeting Ruin Johnson or death threats or making these pathetic YouTube videos for clicks about how much you hate this movie 5 years later, 6 years later, it's just sad. You've made your point. No one's going to change your mind. You're not going to change anyone else's mind. And it's just not good for your mental health. It's not good for your disposition. Like, I'm a firm believer in mind over matter. Like, these people are so sad and unhappy. That's your own making. Go watch and talk about shit you love. Again, to be clear, I'm not saying you have to love everything. There are plenty of movies that I dislike and I have issues with. I have issues with movies I do love, but I say my piece and I move on from it. I don't understand the need to just relitigate the same thing you don't like over and over again, and it becomes a very toxic trend, especially on social media. Like the Snyder stuff, for example, and I'm calling everyone out apparently on this podcast today. Like,
Maxwell, this is why I love you. You don't hold back, so go ahead.
Listen, you can love the Snyder DC movies as much as you want. I think they're a mixed bag. I like a lot of elements of some of them, and I think some elements are really not well done from a writing standpoint. I always felt Zack was stronger at visuals than he was at actually telling stories, which is why I think his best work is ones where he has something very concrete to build off of, like his Dawn of the Dead remake or Watchmen, where he's basically just putting his visual spin on a story that is very clearly in existence, and he's just telling that story. But the toxic tweeting and YouTube comments and YouTube videos about the Snyder stuff, it doesn't make any sense to me. No, they did not release the Snyder Cut because of the Release the Snyder Cut movement. They released the Snyder Cut because AT&T and Warner Brothers wanted something to beef up subscribers to HBO Max and make a little more money, which by all accounts it did. So there was interest in it, but they weren't doing it to appease this very small subset of vocal fans. They were doing it for financial reasons. But now that we've got it, and I think it was a little better than I thought it was going to be, and still didn't need to be 4 fucking hours long. Like,
I can test that adding that Joker to the flash forward epilogue nightmare sequence, not needed, dumb as fuck. That was just him pushing everyone's buttons more because he
couldn't agree more.
And
like those are the type of things that make an interesting deleted scene on a Blu-ray, not actually folding it into your so-called director's cut. But like, this toxic need to go on and on and on and on negatively doesn't make sense to me. If you're a fan of something, you can have issue with it, but spend your time celebrating it instead of trashing it. No, you can hate The Last Jedi, but then tell me what Star Wars movies you do love and why.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more there, because it's just like
I think the other day, what's today, Thursday, either Monday or Tuesday, if you went on Twitter trending topics in entertainment, the top 2 were Last Jedi and Zack Snyder DC.
Yeah, because somebody tweeted out that that would have made $3 billion. I'm like, no, shut up.
No,
you have no.
And listen, in a really smart and unintentional, but I'm still going to take credit for it, way to tie it back to what we were initially talking about, the new Scream very pointedly deals with the notion of toxic fandom with a very, very clear Last Jedi spin.
Yes.
Because if we're talking full spoilers, if y'all haven't seen the new Scream, stop watching this or listening. The motivation for the killers is that they were so unhappy with the newest Stab movie, which was directed Stab 8, but it was Last just Jedi called Stab. Which was directed by the, and I quote, Knives Out guy.
Yep.
They decided to take matters into their own hand to get source material for a new Stab movie. And the character goes, toxic fandom? What's wrong with loving something? And I thought that was really, really smart. You know, I know some people had issues with the motive. For me,
you and I talked. That motive just worked.
For me, based on where we are in entertainment, where we are with fandom, and the way people talk about the things they love or say they love online, it makes so much sense to me Especially when you look back. Yeah, okay, I understand to a certain extent the complaint that for the first time the killer or killers didn't really have any ties to Sydney or to the events of the path, right? The first one, Billy and Stu, had to do with Billy's dad sleeping with Sid's
Sydney's
mom.
mom.
And then in the second one, it's Billy's mom going on revenge. And then in the
Revenge.
third one, it's Sydney's long
Sydney's
lost brother,
brother. Fourth one is
who
Sydney's cousin.
who has her own motivation about
Yeah.
fame, but it's still a relation. So this is the first Scream movie where the killers are not either related to Sydney or directly motivated by the events of the path. But any franchise has to evolve. We're not going to make Scream 9 and be like, it's Sydney's long lost niece.
Well, and like we said, it's a, or they, like they say in the movie, it's a requel. It's supposed to be a reboot and a legacy sequel all in one. They had connections to their connection is we're fans of the Stab franchise. That's the entire connection. That was the whole connection. And they weren't even after Sid.
And
they were after Sam.
Right. And to the film's credit, it brought in a new cast of characters who can carry the franchise on because enough of them survived. Thankfully and appreciably, both of the black new characters survived, which I'm actually surprised they didn't make a bigger mention of. And I feel like in Scream 6 will absolutely be mentioned. Because the beginning of Scream 2, if you remember, was very much about the treatment of black characters in horror. So the fact now that you have Randy Meeks' niece and nephew surviving a Scream movie and who are very perfectly positioned to be major characters in Scream 6,
yes,
they have to, in my opinion, mention how rare it is for them as black people to have survived.
I think if anything, the nephew will be the one to mention it because he'd be like, "Yo, I should have died last time. Like, we don't survive that normally."
Yep.
Like,
but you know, if we're talking Scream a little bit more, there are two characters, one who I legitimately think has a chance of coming back, and one who maybe does and maybe doesn't. But I still think that, okay, listen. First of all, there's a very clear Easter egg in the new Scream that Kirby survived the events of Scream 4. There's a scene where Jack Quaid's character Richie is watching a YouTube video in bed, a Dead Meat James video breaking down about how bad Stab 8 was. And if you look to the right on the suggested videos, one of them says interview with Woodsboro murder survivor Kirby. Okay. So while I understand,
I want to preface it. Maxwell messaged me about that Easter egg, and I'm like, huh? He's like, yeah, you
didn't even notice it.
No, I didn't because I haven't got my second screening yet. But I know to look for it now in that specific scene.
Now I know that Hayden Panettiere has taken some time off from acting,
but they did reach out to her. I know they mentioned that.
But I feel like the cards would be right for her to come back for Scream 6 or whatever they call it. I don't know. Part of me feels like they should riff on Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends and call Scream instead kills. Of numerical, call it Scream with a word. So it's sort of like a new trilogy, new naming, and because to then call it Scream 6 would be confusing. To call it Scream 2 would be super confusing.
Yeah.
So we'll see. The other character who has been talked about ad nauseum by Scream fans since the original is Stewmacher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which, by the way, Matthew Lillard was in Scream 5. I don't know if you know this.
Yes, he voices he said he's in the footage we see of Stab 8.
Yeah, he is the guy with the flamethrower, and I'm just like, okay, right. That's great.
Matthew Lillard also appeared in Scream 2. He's been around. He loves this franchise, right?
Yes.
And listen, this is a series that has always been slightly melodramatic. Almost every movie has had a reveal as to someone related to someone that we didn't know. You know, Billy's mother, Sid's Longlock's brother. Now we're meeting Sid's cousin and aunt. Now, again, here's a Scream 5 spoiler. The main character is Billy Loomis's daughter that no one knew about, right? It would not, for me, be out of the realm of believability for Stu to have survived the events of the first movie and have spent the last 30 years in a mental institution.
Or, I agree with you because
or in a coma, either way.
Because anytime I think we talked about it on the Scream watch along. Anytime I look at that scene, I'm like, He just had an old TV fall on his face, and
now,
you can hear him.
He lost a lot of blood.
Yes, he lost a lot of blood, but he could have survived.
But if Dewey can survive the shit that he survived in these movies, and all these characters, like, and if Kirby can survive the shit she survived in Scream 4, which we have confirmed,
stabbed 3 times, was it?
Yeah, like if Scream 6 opens and Stewmacher's alive, I'd be like, okay, that's fine, I buy it. Now the real question is, I don't think you make him a bad guy. I think you make him sort of rehabilitated, or almost like a Hannibal Lecter type situation.
New Dewey?
He could be the new Dewey, where he decides to come and help, or maybe maybe he comes out of his coma, let's say, and I'm not, this is just total bullshit, or he's in a mental institution, and Sam, who you have to assume Sam and her sister are going to continue to be the main characters. Yes. Which I hope they are, because I think Melissa and Jen are fantastic. I do not understand the hate Melissa's getting. I think she's great. I think she does a lot of the heavy lifting, and it's a difficult role.
I agree. My only issue is, like, in the first 30 or so minutes, I thought she was a little bit wooden, but other than that, I had no issue with her.
It didn't read as wooden to me, because I've been where she's been, because she is reconciling with her past that she had hidden, coming to terms, so she is sort of shell-shocked. Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I just
look at it. Okay.
I think it's a deliberate choice for her to be really reserved until she has that moment where she finally tells her sister who her father was, and then she really opens up. And she has one of the great final girl moments we've seen in a Scream movie. So I'm really curious where they're going to proceed with her character. But let's say Stu is locked up somewhere, and he's just sort of a Hannibal Lecter figure, where he's not doing the killing, but someone, whether it be Sam or Mindy Meeks Martin, is going to visit him for advice on how to handle this, because he's been there. There's definitely a fun way to bring Matthew Lillard back into the series if they so choose. There's one other actor who has appeared in a Scream movie in a bit part, who's a pretty famous actor, who I would think would be hilarious to bring back.
Josh Jackson?
Because 100% Josh Jackson. 100%. Because he's in one scene or two scenes in Scream 2 as just another college student, because he was on Dawson's Creek and he did it as a favor for Kevin Williamson, and then he would go on to be in his own slasher movie a couple years later with Urban Legend. But I think Josh Jackson would be so funny if they brought him back. He's like, oh yeah, I went to Windsor College. I was around when these happened, and now I'm a main character in Scream 6. It's never going to happen in a million years, but it would be funny if it were to happen.
I would love that, just because he's my favorite character. Windsor College is in Ohio, in the Scream world. So that would be cool. Maxwell, you won me over with that one. Yep. Mm-hmm. No argument for me there. But no, it's funny that we were able to kind of bring this entire conversation full circle, talking about all this different stuff, and then bring it right back to Scream at the end because of the journey of the conversation.
I always find a way to bring things right back to Scream.
See, hey, that is true. I've learned that about you very, very easily. But no, Maxwell, I want to thank you again for coming on, my guy. You are always. I always love talking to you, whether it's on a stream or off stream. It's always fun, and I wish you well in all your future endeavors, because you are someone who absolutely deserves the recognition you get. So good on you. But before we go, I do got to do a couple quick plugs. Go watch my review for Jackass Forever. I've never seen so much dick torture in a movie before in my life. Go check that out. It's up on the channel right now. If you haven't watched it, go check out our episode of Saber Reels, where we recap Book of Boba Fett and everything that went on with episode 6. And as always, coming up this Sunday, after this airs, Euphoria After Dark. Be sure to watch the new episode of Euphoria and check that out with me, Jeff, and Paige, and maybe another person or two. We'll see. But yeah, Maxwell, once again, my friend, thank you for coming on. Where can the good people find you?
Well, first of all, I was gonna say I would have been more interested in Euphoria After Dark if Jeff wasn't a part of it, but that's fine.
Okay, Mike Deacon.
Yeah. Well, if Mike's not here, someone else has to keep it up. You can find me on Twitter at Cinemaxwell, Instagram Cinemaxwell Inc. I compete in the FCL. I am an executive producer over at the Let's Get Ready Network. I hang out and mod for Video Drew and Chris Adams sometimes, the Cinefanatics as well. And myself and Amber, who is on Twitter at Takara Kanashi, are launching our own channel sometime later this month called Ember Productions. You could follow us on Twitter at Ember Products. That's EMBERPRODUX, because Ember Productions is too long for Twitter. Thanks, Twitter. And that has the link to go subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're going to be doing all sorts of fun content over there, focusing on movies, theme parks, and Broadway. And we're really hoping to do a lot of stuff with theme parks and Broadway to separate us out from the pack a little bit, and not step on the toes of all of our friends who do amazing movie content. But we will still do movie reviews from time to time. And we are going to have a weekly hangout show where we literally just get together, maybe with the guest, and shoot the shit. So be sure to check that out when it launches in a couple weeks.
All right. And with that, everyone, thank you for tuning in. And we'll see you next time. Remember to like, subscribe, follow everything we're doing over here at WATReelEnt. And having a good night or day.